just want to talk to you and share a couple, Daniel and Jasmine. I've been working with them for a while, and I've been very impressed with their growth, their commitment to themselves, and I think that it would be edifying for people to share and hear what I hear on an everyday basis. Thank you for taking the time, and I look forward to you sharing in this experience. Let's start at the beginning. What motivated, first of all, why did you pick me of all people? Who picked the therapist?
I did. So I was looking for a counselor and I did not know what direction to take. I went on a portal and it was just a list of people and faces. I'm like, this is gonna take forever. So I just reached out to people who I knew were in relationships, whether dating or married, and was like, hey, have you ever done marriage counseling? How do you go about finding somebody? All this fun stuff. And so I ran across one of my friends and they said, yeah, we did do it. Went to Dr. Todd. He was great. They helped us. Here's his information. So that's how I ran across you. So
then when you I guess you looked me up first before you came and
Yep. So to be honest, let's just say I got your information probably 3 months before we actually had our first session. For two reasons. The first time I had it, things calmed down. So I'm like, all right, we don't need to go. And then things picked back up. I'm like, I don't care, even if I just gotta go, I'm going to set up something. And then I asked him like, hey, I set this up, you don't have to go, but I'm going, and she agreed to come, but then we had to, just wait for your availability because you're highly coveted. So, so then we were able to come.
All right, so Jasmine, what motivated you to want to be a part of this process?
I love my man.
Okay.
And I had come to a place of acceptance that we were having communication issues. And I was very impressed, that he took the initiative as a man to even reach out and say, hey.
Why is that so important? You said that as though it was important to you. Why?
It's so important because in previous relationships, I've never seen that initiative. And it's rare that you hear of a man in my experience saying, I love you, value you, care about you enough to be vulnerable in front of someone else, for the sake of, healing our relationship and working on our communication.
So even though you felt salty about something, still valuing him, valuing the relationship, that action allowed you to see over any resentment, bitterness, disdain, to see that he actually cared.
Absolutely.
Did you recognize that this type of action, that type of assertion would create that type of thought and impact?
Not at all.
Hearing it, what's going on inside of you when you hear it?
It makes more sense. I didn't know why she said yes. Again, I was fully prepared for her to say no, but at that time I was at my wit's end. Like, something has to change, whether it's between both of us or me. But I had to figure out what can happen to cause some growth in our relationship. And so
so therefore your anger or disappointment, your confusion in the relationship wasn't really about not wanting to be in the relationship. It was really about it's not flowing the way you want it to flow.
Yep.
However, when you sometimes in the midst of the back and forth, did you question whether he wanted to be in the relationship?
Oh, I don't know that I questioned if he wanted to be in the relationship, but I did question if how much longer he was going to be able to tolerate my communication issues.
So did you recognize, and now maybe after the fact you may, but even in the midst of that, he was actually trying to get closer to you. He wasn't actually trying to pull away, but you were thinking he was trying to go the other way. Actually, he was fighting to come to you.
Yes, I was scared. When
Hearing it that way, though, this is why, the reason I'm highlighting this, and I'm going to get back to you in a minute in regards to Jasmine's reason why she agreed to come. However, the reason I want to highlight that is because when people see people in the midst of arguments in a relationship, they always feel that it's a deal breaker, that if we argue, it's about something adverse. No, it's your perception of what's going on, but the truth of the matter is the reason of the noise is because you actually care.
Right.
When there is no noise, you might want to wonder.
Yes.
But as long as there's energy, even adverse energy transferred between the two of you, there's actually a connection. Because if you don't care, why the energy?
Absolutely.
We do that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sense?
Yes.
going back to you, but hearing that she saw your action of asking her as a action of love, how does that resonate with you now, hearing it that way?
Again, for me, it just provides clarity and reassurance that I was going about things the right way, and as long as you have,
Even in the midst of not knowing if I was doing it right,
yeah,
finding out that just trusting my instincts was a good thing. How was that for you?
yeah, having good intentions. That's like just me as a person. I try to always, in whatever relationship or dynamic I have with a person, to have good intentions, and hopefully it works out. And then what I'm learning in a relationship, somebody I see every single day, around all the time, good intentions don't always yield the best results. However, when they don't yield the best results and we have conversations, I'm able to go back and she's able to recognize, okay, even though he didn't do it this way or he still upset me, he didn't mean any harm. He had a good, she knows that. I feel like she knows that with everything. So that helps, just keeps me on the same path and just think things through, make sure.
How is it for you to know that he sees you and appreciates you?
Oh my gosh, it feels great. It feels amazing. Yeah, I feel valued. I feel valued. I feel loved. Because the truth of the matter, I think as women, it's not something we may always like to admit. And I've shared this with you all before in a separate session. He didn't have to. He doesn't have to. No one has to be in the relationship. No one has to choose. It's a choice that he chooses me every single day.
Excellent.
And so for me, I honor that and I respect that so much because he has a choice, right? And so, yeah, that's something that I always keep in mind.
How was that for you?
It's good that she knows. Like, not even in an arrogant manner, but I don't even think of it as a choice. To me, it's low-key, I have to because I love her and the kids so much. It's like, no, I have to make this work. It's not a thought of, oh, I have other options. I have other choices. Even though I know good and well, again, we're not married. If we were married, I could get a divorce, type thing. But, there's always a door. But, if I say cheesy, I choose to stay where I am because I want to. So
Excellent. So your commitment to the relationship is really a commitment to yourself.
Yeah. It's both, yo.
Well said.
Excellent. So now everybody's hearing this nirvana you guys have, but it didn't start this way. Why did you feel it was necessary to come in regards to relationship? You mentioned communication. Communication is a big thing. So help me understand what you mean by communication.
What I mean by communication, when I say that, what I'm referring to is that there was a generational pattern that I wanted to break. Such as just a lack of respect for the man that I'm with. It was actually damaging. It is detrimental to my relationship. I come from a strong line of women that, we're single mothers. And, because of that, I saw their demeanor and I saw how they handled relationships, past hurts, submitting to men that weren't worthy of that, and how it tainted relationships that they had. And seeing that growing up, I thought, oh, okay, that's just how a woman is to be with a man. It's okay for me to rebuttal and be argumentative when I'm passionate about something. But that's actually, it wasn't benefiting or helping our relationship. We weren't able to properly communicate because I was so offended and, just so
He wasn't playing the game according to my rules.
Right, controlling.
Yeah, excellent. Interesting. I want to come back to that. Hearing what you just heard, what's going on inside of you?
When I think about how far we've come, and it's just comical the stuff we used to disagree on. I don't remember verbatim, but we moved into our house and she wanted these curtains hung up. They sat for a while. Finally, I woke up early. I hung them up, right? Something happened, whether it was, something was still left and she found a reason but I'm like, do you not see all these curtains hung up by myself? I figured it out.
You focused on what I didn't do as opposed to
and I'm like, and so to me that was disheartening because it's like, okay, you focus on what I'm not doing. I agree, I'm not doing it. I do it, and then you find something else. It was just so maddening to me, and I can't figure it out.
It makes it feel as though I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't.
Exactly, it's
like
a
no-win situation here.
Yeah, and it was tough because then I think in those moments, those weren't as warranted as your other moments.
Right.
But when the moments where you were valid in that, it takes away, like the boy that cried wolf.
Right.
Like, okay, like you're crying wolf, there's no wolf, but now when it's a wolf, nobody's coming. So now when they're actual wolf, I didn't want to change or adjust because like I had to change these 20 other things you asked for.
Mm-hmm.
So, but just hearing her talk, it just brought back those memories and just think about how far we've gone. And I think with both of us, the communication came from, she had luggage from her previous relationships as well as how she lived before she met me.
Mm-hmm.
I had luggage from how I was with my previous relationships and situations before I met her and how I lived.
Mm-hmm.
I can honestly, I don't think we were trying to compromise. I think we were trying to bring each other in each other's world. And that's what caused a lot of conflict with communication, because now I'm trying to bring you into my world and you're getting defensive, and you're trying to bring me into your world. I'm getting defensive because we're not seeing it each other's way instead of finding a way that we both agree. And that was, and neither one of us was necessarily wrong in my opinion. Except for a couple times I was right, she was wrong. But otherwise, outside of those.
Well, I appreciate you taking ownership for that.
Yeah.
Hey, but actually you're just articulating what I think is very important about relationships. Remember, nobody teaches us how to be in intimate relationships. We're taught to be students, we're taught to be military, we're taught to be professionals. No one teaches us how to be intimate partners. You have pieces and parts, I have pieces and parts, we're thrown together, hope for the best.
Absolutely.
For me, that's an accident waiting to happen. Typically, when people come to relationships, you have your experiences, your box, your definition of manhood, womanhood based on where you come from. You have yours based on where you come from. Now, therefore, most of the time in relationships, I'm trying to get you, to your point, fit in my box. I'm trying to get you to be in my box. However, neither of those boxes included either one of you. Why? Because the boxes were created before you were a factor, therefore you'll never fit. The responsibility is to blow up those boxes, come into an experience where we share our nuances, what's important to us, what's significant to us. We value each other enough to create a new experience that is inclusive of both of us, which I see you guys are beginning to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think the huge thing was those boxes. She used to always vocalize, hey, I'm used to a guy doing this, or I'm expecting a guy to do that. I never vocalized it, but I did have my preconceived notions from just what I saw like my mom do, because I didn't grow up in a single household. My dad worked, my mom took care of the kids in the house. That's what I saw. And in my mind, I shouldn't have to say that. It should be common sense. You should know to do X, Y, Z and step it up. Right. So I'm gonna give you 4 days, and if you ain't acting on them 4 days to do what I said, then I'm gonna vocalize it. But she would be the opposite. She'll like, she'll wait 1 or 2 days, like, hey, I've never had a guy who wouldn't do this or who wouldn't want to do this. I'm like, well, I don't care. I'm not those guys. I'm me. And again, conflict, but that was from boxes that we both had separately. So again, we're still learning it. I think it's gonna be an ongoing cycle and teaching lesson, but I think that's the big thing, acknowledging it that neither one of us was right. I think that's a big thing, because she's not my mom. She's told me she's not my mom. But also, I've told her I'm not those guys, and I will never be those. I don't want to be those guys. I'm better than those guys. That's what I told her. Like,
and I'm not with them anymore, so why even compare?
Exactly.
Exactly. Those were failed relationships.
Exactly. For example, if he said, "Hey, Rebecca did it this way. How come you do it that way?" You sure be salty.
Oh, I would be the saltiest.
I don't know why. They can dish it. They can take it.
There wasn't even a Rebecca, and I'm upset right now.
I tell you, but I've gotten that. John would. I'm like, well, what about if I said Jessica?
Yeah.
You wouldn't like that. So, but when I finally got the courage to say that, like, do you? And I wouldn't say check, but for lack of a better word, check. Like, do you realize what you're saying to me?
Absolutely.
And do you realize how you would act and how you feel if I said this to you? Not once, but repeatedly. And I think once that happened, it started to trail off. It still happened here and there, but she'll catch herself, she'll apologize, things of that nature.
How important is that to you, that she's holding herself accountable? She's actually heard you. She's making a shift and an adjustment. How does that resonate with you?
It's huge for multiple reasons. But for the main reason you just said, she listening, and I see the changes. Like Jasmine, my big thing, I told her this before too, the big thing I will always brag about her to friends and things of that nature, even though I felt like she could be disrespectful sometimes, she get act this way, say this, do. She always was man enough or woman enough, adult enough to then say, okay, I was wrong. She's always in that. I think that doing that little bit kept me around. Whereas, okay, we got into it, she never apologized, she never made good on it, I would be out the door. But seeing her do that let me know she has it in her. Like, so once she just does this though consistently, but not only in this area and that area too, we good money. So it was just sticking with her, being patient, as I'm sure she had to do with me for some things, and just seeing it through, because she's always been one to, and it wouldn't be a week or anything like that, maybe a day, but I think she loves me so much, she'll realize she did something wrong, and I'm not going for it, so I've separated myself. She don't want to be separated, so she reevaluates. She's like, okay, did I do this wrong? Can I do this better? All right, let me do this. I'll go get my boo back. She cared enough to do that, whereas some people may have ego and pride and wouldn't. So she's just, this was just another example of that.
Excellent.
That one took a while, took longer than the other ones, but she got
Once
it.
you got there.
She got it. So.
How was it for you to feel seen and heard and appreciated for your efforts?
It feels great. It feels really great. You know, when he was talking, I was thinking about the reference to previous men that I had been with, and you know, the comparison. It's interesting, something I learned on my self journey, because I feel like that is a huge part to relationship
That's
work.
what I want to highlight, because in this couple work, you're challenged individually.
Right.
How was that individual challenge in regards to creating the experience he's talking about? What was that like for you? To have to wrestle with family of origin stuff, deal with your own inner workings, and how you saw him. What was that like for you?
Well, you know, there was a session that we had with you where you had mentioned in the session, hey, Jasmine is going to get really loud at first, but she's going to come back to herself. You set us up for success by giving us baby steps, right? So what happened is I remember I felt validated in the session because there was no bias. You acknowledged both of our feelings. You acknowledged what was valid, what needed to be corrected. And then I remember going home, and something would happen that would, you know, frustrate me or upset me, and I would get loud and boisterous and say, you know, we've been over this. You know, I've told you that, you know, I don't understand why you keep leaving the toilet seat up, or you keep leaving, you know, right, like petty things. And Daniel would take the instruction and the guidance that you gave us, and he would keep in his mind, okay, she's working on herself, she's doing self-work, she's gonna be loud and boisterous because that's what she's used to, but she's aware of it, she's working on it, right? So then I started to catch myself in real time.
Excellent.
With the baby steps that you gave us. You taught him how to acknowledge that I know my communication is wrong. This has been a generational pattern. It's something I've done for a really long time. And that alone, seeing him be patient with me and show kindness, I had to realize I had self-work to do. Because see, I can no longer say it's this on the counter or the toilet seat being up. It's self-reflection. Why are you yelling? Is it necessary to do that? Where does that stem from? How do we fix it? Because now, you know, we've been given these baby steps to, he's acknowledging it, but where's my work? So doing my own self-work, it was so rewarding because I stopped projecting onto him. Excellent. And I started focusing in on me. I can't control Daniel, I can control Jasmine. And if there's anything that I need to be focused on controlling, it's myself. It's my own actions. And in that, I reaped a really great harvest in sowing those seeds into myself.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So how is it for you to be in a relationship where someone recognizes they have accountability to themselves and to you within the relationship? How is that? You know, we live in a society today, particularly in your generation, most people don't want to be accountable for much. But to hear someone saying, in order for me to be successful in a relationship, I have to hold myself accountable to make sure that my family of origin and stuff, my baggage doesn't jade the lens to see you. I see how it's doing it. I take accountability for that to demonstrate how I love you. Hearing that, how is that for you?
It's good not to sound, you know, egomaniac. It lets me know that I did well in my decision, you know, to stay. And like I've always known she had the potential, and she was that type of person. It's just a matter of her, you know, owning it and cherishing it, and not, you know, feeling like it's me against the world.
So everything you want in life isn't always easy.
Exactly. It's not. It's not. It's not. And just learning that. But you know, if life was easy, it'd be boring. That's what I always say. You know what I'm saying? So, but on both of us, me being patient, and her having to do the work that she needs to do to get out of it, get what she wants out of it. She would. It's funny because I didn't see a lot of arguing in the house. I don't know if they handled it before I was born, if they shielded it, if my mom, dad put his foot down, my mom knew better, whatever the case may be. I didn't, and I'm just not argumentative, because to me it's a sign of disrespect, and I feel like I'm a very respectful person. So if you disrespect me, you better have a pretty darn good reason, and I felt a lot of times she didn't. Yeah. So then I'll shut off or back away. But her's like, damn, you want me to be perfect? Every relationship, they argue, blah, blah. And I just try to stress and push to her, like, I don't mind having disagreements. Nobody has to be disrespectful, get loud. Like, right. But that was the thing that was lost in translation.
So let us figure out how we need to argue together so we can handle it. I know you had what you had at your house. I know what you had. I know what I had at my house. This is our house. We have to create our own experience, yes. Not replicate other people's houses because they don't live here.
Figuratively and literally. Because when we moved into the house, it was, Daniel, I always wanted a house. It's my first house. I want it this way. It's Jazz, okay, I always wanted a house too. It's my first house, like it's your first house. So why should it be more yours than mine? Yeah. So like figuratively and literally, literal. we had to learn, you know, how to make things our house, and not bring in any baggage or outside noise.
Excellent. So how do you see your future collectively as you continue to take accountability to yourselves and to the relationship?
Right.
Yeah. Same.
Original. Big word.
You know what though? It was on my mind and on my heart to say this. I think a lot of couples, what we have is special. It's real. You used a great word for us one time. It's organic. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, relationships boil down to so many factors, so many different things. But I believe there's so many couples out there that you can make it work. You just have to do the work.
And allow it to be an organic experience, not a replica of something that you've only seen partially.
Yes, be willing. You know, I think that, I know that in our relationship, it was like, oftentimes you're facing each other, and you got your dukes up, and it's like, why? We both want the same thing. Like, we both want the same goal. We have the common goal. We love each other. We want this to work. But I feel like where a lot of couples go wrong, and I know this is certainly where I was going wrong, is I was just looking at him as my enemy almost, in a sense. I'm in love with you. I was. Well. You know, I want to be with you. I want a life and a future with you. But I'm fighting you, and
which came from the family of origin part.
Right. It came from the absolutely the family of origin part. And then, you know, also not looking back at myself, I think it's a beautiful thing when you can say, okay, you know, I was very controlling. I was like, I want you to do things this way, that way. And I called it perfectionism, but really it was just being controlling, right? And when I stepped back and realized it's not my job to control Daniel, I can control myself. Let me start to question here. You know, maybe it's not just him, maybe it's me. Maybe there's some things that I need to work on. Maybe there's some things I need to look into. And in doing that, you know, not listening to respond to him, but listening to understand him, listening to understand myself. You know, I was able to unpack a lot, you know, a lot, and it really has benefited our relationship so much.
Yeah, to her point, she said, you know, learning not to fight him, because again, I'm not going to be confrontational. So she's not fighting me, so guess what? I'm not going to fight her. Right. So now it's like, okay, we are actively learning. We didn't get into it, but we had some things the other day, and then we had some things like yesterday. But we're learning it's okay to be upset with each other too.
Excellent.
Cause we're humans.
Exactly.
Be upset when the opportunity comes. Be respectful enough to hear me out. I'll be respectful enough to hear you out when you're ready. When we both feel comfortable, and then we let it go. we say what you say, and we move on.
My point is that in relationships, it's not about fighting. It's not about a point of whether you fight or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's about when we fight, are we working to come together, not allowing it to divide us. So what we're doing is we're actually fighting against something else, not fighting against each other.
Yep.
All we're doing is raising a flag. I see something, whether you see it or not, I see it. Can you be open to seeing my perspective? Now, how do we collaborate to not allow it to divide us? And I hear you having the tools to do. Basically, we'll fight to come together, not fighting against each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, may I say something?
Yes.
I heard an example once, and this is exactly what I was envisioning as you two were speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when we first started counseling, it was like this, like we're facing each other, right? And we're upset with each other. I feel like now our backs are up against each other, and we started addressing the things around us and started fighting those things off. Whether it was, those generational patterns, past toxic relationship, or, we started to fight. We didn't fight each other. We actually worked together to address the things outside of ourselves.
How do you feel about what you just said?
No, I agree, because we were just, until I had a conversation where I had to tell her more about myself, more about my history, so that she understood.
Your inner workings, how you work, so she could have a level of empathy, understand you well enough to adjust and adapt to you. That's how she demonstrates she has value for you.
Exactly. And the fact that conversation, again, started off a little divisive. I stayed patient. She got through it, allowed me to, then say my piece. And we continue to grow from there. Like, it's just all building blocks of a solid, on top of a solid foundation. So,
in other words, we have to create space for each other to let them do their part, as opposed to the battling banjos. Let me pause. Let me hold space to show that I care. I may have to wrestle with myself internally to be patient, but then when that dissipates, now I can begin to assert myself. But if we're both battling banjos, we bang heads. But when she goes up, I stay down, and then when she starts to go down, I come up. We actually get to meet and have actually the clear conversation.
Yep. And then she said this the other day. She's like, we came too far. I ain't trying to go back. And I'm like, I agree. So that helps us too. Like,
accountability.
Whenever
Excellent.
we like,
Excellent.
she about to spaz, or I'm about to spaz, like, nah, cause then that can spiral back down, and we done climbed up too many stairs, and we ain't trying to go back.
We are building.
Exactly.
So we may go down 1 or 2 steps, but we ain't pit sliding. We ain't just going back sliding all the way down. So
excellent.
You know what's fun now?
What's up?
This is what's fun now. So I experienced this morning. We had a conversation about something that had transpired yesterday. Not a big deal, but it was important to, for Daniel to communicate how he felt, right? And so what's fun now is I would get really defensive in the past when Daniel would say, I needed this from you and you didn't necessarily do this, and I felt let down. And I would start to list off all the things that I've done, right? Like, get real nasty, right? Now, this morning when he was talking, I was just looking at him and I thought, okay, well, what I just heard is your love language is acts of service, and I didn't give you that because I was really busy with work and I was really busy, with other tasks. So I told him at the end of, him communicating, I said, thank you for letting me know. I realize what you need acts of service, and I'm gonna make sure I give that to you the next time around. It's the communication's different now. I don't hear him like I used to. My guard isn't up.
You're hearing the core of what it is, not the symptom. Basically, I know where it's coming from, so what he says isn't offensive because it's coming from a good place.
And I don't care about being right. I care about getting right. Like I don't need to be right. In the beginning of our conversation, I felt myself start to teeter a little bit into, well, I mean, I get you were tired. I've done this too. And then I was like, hold on, like time out. Let's pause. Let's listen to understand. I don't want to be right. I want to get right. I don't want to go back and forth with you. That's another issue that I've seen, like we used to struggle with and that we have to constantly be aware of, and that I know friends of ours, other couples have struggled with. It's who's right. It's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's not about that. It's about what's the solution. And I think that now when we have conversations, it's geared around solution based.
Right. Go ahead.
I was about to say, to that point, she did used to have a habit of, bringing up the past and how you say leave fresh start. She did teeter on that today.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you recall, but when she did that, initially I wanted to be like, one, this ain't the past.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it's different. In my mind, for maybe like 3 seconds, instead of listening, I was thinking about how it's different, the situations. Her comparing herself to me to her. I'm like, no, because even then, it was this.
Listening to respond.
Yeah. So, but I caught myself because even if I did that, and I proved my point, okay, I won that battle, but we was focused on the war. I came to her about the war, not the battle. So it would have been pointless. So that for me was swallowing my pride and taking peace of, no matter what she think, I think our situation was different, but that's not important.
Yes.
What's important is that I get to say this and she hears me. If I divert and go to this, she's not going to hear me. So
yeah, restraint. And that was so wise. I didn't even know that's what you were doing. Like, that was really wise of you as well. And then that made me want to, and I think this is why I believe the Bible says the woman is the weaker vessel, because in you doing that, you taking the lead to show restraint and leave space for me to speak, it made me want to submit. And in that
because you
moment,
felt heard.
Yes, because I felt heard. And in that moment, I was able to catch myself in the work that we've been doing and say, it's not about being right, it's about getting right. So this is what he needs. Let's get to the core, like get to the meat. What's the root of it? All the other stuff is just, it's perspectives. They can both be valid.
In close, I just want to interject this. Some things to highlight what you're saying, will just be specific about what you're highlighting. Number one is that you're both taking accountability to the experience you want to have in relationship with the other.
Yeah.
So as soon as you're identifying there's an argument or the fisticuff, as you mentioned before, hey, do I really want to do this? It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what other people do. Do I intrinsically want to feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to go there, so I'm going to control myself such that I don't engage in something I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
You were doing the same thing. That makes sense?
Yep.
Excellent. That's what it is. It's, hear me, part of what you're doing is, yes, I'm open, I'm listening, I'm trying to, but also, I don't want to feel adverse
Yes.
internally. So the mere fact that I don't want to won't let me
Right.
do the battling banjos and escalate this up and up.
Right.
I choose to control my experience because the one who controls my emotions controls me. If I don't control my emotions, I'm out of control no matter what's going on, no matter what the arena.
Yep.
So therefore, I lose control, but then I blame it on you.
Mm-hmm.
But that means that I'm a minion in somebody else's game.
There you
Excellent. So I hear you. That's why I'm big on accountability.
go. Mm-hmm.
Why are we looking outwardly? We're holding ourselves accountable
Inward.
for what's going on. And to your point, you were talking to yourself. You were self-regulating yourself, taking accountability and ownership. And again, you're giving each other opportunity to learn each other.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what I'm hearing with you is, hey, you're listening to Jasmine. Jasmine's listening to you. To your point about the submission,
Mm-hmm.
the point is that the other point I wanted to make is that people can't hear you until you're willing to hear them.
Mm-hmm.
You actually stopped to demonstrate I'm hearing you. The mere fact that she thought she was heard, then this way, now I'm open to hear. But if we're going back and forth and cutting each other off, we won't accomplish that.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Again, let the other person be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like this, when you punch somebody and once I extend my arm the fullest, there's no more energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if I let them get it all out, the testiness, the arguing is over. It dissipates. Now I can just speak however I want to speak because they're open to hear. But if I'm trying to push back while they're vomiting on me, all it is a mess.
Yep.
That fair?
Bigger mess.
Hey, I
got a
thank
good
you for
man.
your time. I thank you for your time and energy.
Thank
I
you.
greatly appreciate it.